Mr. Belquist.
Hey, how's it going, Warren? How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. How are you this week?
Doing well, doing well. It's hard to believe that it is now the first week officially into 2025. Wow.
Yeah, we didn't even really do anything for year-end wrap-up. I was thinking about it and had some inquiries. We've actually done a very successful, just a random Zoom video call with everybody the last few years, but I just was too busy with everything going on in my life this year. But we've got all these other outlets now that are really nice too to
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would have been nice to have done something, but yeah, my schedule definitely wasn't going to permit. So, with that said, to all the viewers and everybody that's tuning out there, Happy New Year. Happy 2025. We are
And
in the
thanks
middle of the
for
decade.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Of course, Space 1999 this episode, Roy. We are on episode number,
11.
oof, almost halfway through the first year. That's hard to believe.
That's crazy. How did
Yeah,
that happen?
yeah. No kidding, no kidding. But yes, no, happy holidays to everybody out there, and thanks for tuning in again. One thing I wanted to say, I keep forgetting every week, Roy, and remind me, and I can remind you if I forget, is everybody out there, just a reminder if you're enjoying these podcasts so far, to make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm and ensures that we can continue to provide for you this wonderful content.
Absolutely. So again, all you have to do is just hit subscribe, and your voice will be added.
Yeah. So listen, Roy, what are we going to be talking and discussing this week?
Well, this is episode number 11, and the ITC summary from back in the day goes as follows. The prospect of a normal life dangles tangentially.
What word was that? Tantalizingly?
There you go. Thank you, Warren. Now, in all seriousness, the prospect of a normal life dangles tantalizingly for the occupants of the runaway moon. Real air and sunshine, a new existence similar to that on Earth, but there is drama behind the dream. And of course, we are talking about the first season episode of The Last Sunset, one of my favorites from the series.
Wow, now that is tantalizing. Well, that's great. We'll dive right in and have a look at this wonderful opening and come back with a very special guest in just a moment. Thanks for that, Roy.
Thanks, Warren. See you, everyone. That never gets old.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Roy. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say that never gets old. And again, thank you to Catherine Bujol for that wonderful opening that we love to look at week after week. And today, Warren, we have a very, very special guest, and I'm very happy to say this is one of my oldest friends, and he is no stranger to Space 1999 fandom, and he is the one and only Mr. Lou Place.
Greetings, everybody. How are you?
Hey,
Thanks.
Warren and Roy, how are you folks doing tonight?
Doing well. How are you doing, Lou?
I'm hanging in there.
really nice to see you, and really pleased that you could join us this evening, Lou.
Oh, I wouldn't miss it.
No, this worked out really, really well. And Warren, I mean, before we get diving into The Last Sunset, you've known Lou for some time as well too. So it's really cool. Again, Space 1999 fandom, how everything kind of interconnects on one level or another, and throughout the years. So it's great that we all have connected through this wonderful show.
That's for sure.
Yeah, it is really fascinating because there's so many layers to it, and we've crossed over so many times down through the years, and now 30 years later we can make all these connections and just look back and ponder and go, wow, where's the time gone? But hasn't it been remarkable at the same time? We've met all these wonderful people.
Yeah, time flies, and just that first convention in 1978. Still remember it. In Columbus, I believe it was. See, I'm even starting to forget. That's how long ago it was. Yeah, Columbus.
Yeah, wow. And you have some amazing photos from that convention too, Lou, which is really cool.
Yeah, I was like totally, well, many of us were just unknowns back then. Nobody knew who I was. I didn't know who anybody else was. I went there and I had no idea what to expect, and met people, have lifelong friends from it, and it just continues. It's to this day, really, which is pretty cool,
And it's funny, it's so commonplace now when we hear Columbus, Ohio referring to the first Space 1999 convention. But I remember back in the day, again, I always like to give a plug to Starlog magazine, which we were talking about before the show, that was our internet, so to speak. And I remember reading that Space 1999 convention really in Columbus, Ohio. I mean, I was like, and it was Save 1990. It was the Save 1999 Alliance too. It said. And I was thinking, okay, am I reading this right? And, usually it would be something like either New York, California, or Los Angeles. You're thinking California. But the fact that it was in Columbus, and I was like, wow, that's like far, but it's not tremendously far. But unfortunately, at the time when I heard about it, I was only like 12, and it wasn't going to happen. So
that's where I found out about it too, was in Starlog. And I remember Columbus. Ooh, and that was the first time I ever flew in my life, was to go to that convention.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah,
and again, pretty exciting all around,
And that was 1978. And fast forward 21 years later, you and I, we were roommates. We were at the Space 1999, the Breakaway Convention in Los Angeles, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that was fun too, man. I like to relive those days somehow. Go time machine, go back. Just kind of be a fly on the wall, even, and just see what. It was just terrific, Yeah, we've lost so many people since then too. It's kind of morbid, but Xenia's gone and Barry's gone and Freddie. We won't go into that.
He's gone too. Yeah, and then the people from the show, and then the folks that we've lost, on the fan side of it too. It's just it's again, not to be saddened with our discussion, but it's so true. The time has just gone by, and now we're at 50 years. It's like, how the heck is 1975 50 years ago? It's like, wait a minute, that just doesn't seem right. I mean, are we doing the math right here or what?
And think of how far in the future 1999 was when the show was new. We're thinking, wow, that's like 85, 95. That's like 25 years or so. Yeah, 25,
right.
24 years in the future. It seemed like such a long time. And now it was how many years ago?
I know. It's 26 already.
Yeah.
And then when you think of the Caldorians from Earthbound, they were saying when Koenig is having that conversation with Simmons about, do you know what Earth will be like in 75 years? It's like, well, when the show was being filmed, that was 50 years ago. So it's like 25 years from now, we'll be able to tell them what Earth will be like.
See, that's one of the reasons that Roy and I get along so well is we're both like date freaks. We like to figure out how long ago something was and how far away it will be. And we do that all the time. So
I sort of fit into that category because I proved to you even before we went on the air here tonight that I can use, and it's really strange in my life because I can pull things from 30 years ago, no problem, but I can't remember last Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly. What was that?
Totally correct.
Shoot, it's all good.
But no, and listen, and on that note, there's definitely a connection because Lou and I met Rosie uh, in 1995 in Portland, and that was the first time I met Rosie Badgett, and to lose her so suddenly, so tragically, just earlier this year, and the week leading into the big convention in London. I mean, say what you will about timing and boy, things like that, but that was a big loss to the community, and she really was. She represented just everything good about the community, and she brought so many people together, and so shout out there definitely to Miss Badgett.
That was a shock. I
Yeah,
was
that,
like, what? What? Am I hearing this correctly? And no, she kept it quiet. Apparently, we still don't know what was going on unless you guys do, and I don't. But I haven't heard of cause yet. But
No, there haven't been a lot of details, but you're absolutely right because and actually, like Roy and I had more recent dealings with her, and I think I talked to her like uh, a week in advance of her passing, right? And
really,
it was just, yeah, it would hit like a rock, boy.
I'm trying to think when I actually met Rosie. It was at one of the early conventions. It was
Well, it must have been because I think she went to the first one in Columbus.
She was at 78, but I didn't know her then. It was a face of thousands at the time. It's all these recognizable people now, but back then I knew nobody.
yeah.
But I remember when she became president of the Space 1999 Alliance, and that was kind of about the time I started to like, hey, how you doing? Congratulations. And we ended up talking. I ended up going out to California and visiting her several times, and became friends, and it was all good. That's the way this whole thing worked. Pretty much everybody. I don't think there's anybody in this gang that I really despised. There have been other places I can't make that statement, but the space people have always been good, and that's why I keep in touch with them. People all over the world. That's what's even stranger. I went to France because of Space 99.
Great.
I went to Sweden because of Space 1999. UK, same thing. So
Yeah, and that's just it. Meeting so many people worldwide, whether it be in person or virtually, or then meeting them.
Oh, did we lose
somebody
you, Roy?
froze. Warren's still there, right?
Yeah, yeah. Roy's on pause there. It looks like we'll give him a
In
second.
person as a result of the virtual.
Oh, there he is.
Oops, I'm back.
There we go.
Whoa, I think that was Ara.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. And you know what? As we're talking about that, that reminds me. In the next 2 weeks, I think we're covering Collision Course, right, Roy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just for anybody out there who hasn't heard, let's just cover the mystery and legend of all three things Margaret or Margaret Leighton, and that goes back to those early days of conventions and convention planning as well. And Rosie had told me this story back in Portland. I didn't believe it at first. I didn't know what to make of it. This idea that Margaret Leighton, who passed away shortly after the filming of Space, I believe, right?
Yeah, she
Uh,
died in 1976. She was suffering from, if I remember correctly, MS, and she was not that old. She was only 54. They had aged her quite a bit, for the character, and she was a very prominent actress too back in the day. So the fact that, she was titled as a special guest star. So it was definitely an honor for her to be a part of the cast, but she was really not doing very well during the filming of the episode in 1974.
yeah, and just long story short, the idea is that Margaret has sort of been our guardian angel all these years with everything to do with fandom and conventions, and been with us, if you will, every step of the way, right? Lou, Rosie told the story. If you want to chime in there.
Oh yeah, several times we were in elevators and doors would open and nobody there, and just odd things would happen, and we'd always kind of say, "Oh, Margaret," and it happened more than a few times. It was pretty strange, but
The MUF, the Mysterious Unknown
there
Force.
you go. Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
it was always weird instances and happenings whenever fans would get together, and I've seen it, I witnessed it, and it was like Lou said, the elevator doors, but the other famous one that Margaret always likes to play, and it's continued right to this day with conventions just within the last few months. Roy, I remember one time distinctly where after hours, if everybody's sitting in a restaurant or a lounge somewhere and an order of drinks goes in, the waitress will come back, or the waiter, the server, I should say, and there's an extra drink on the tray. It just the strangest thing, and then as soon as you see it, you go, "Oh yeah, that's for Margaret."
I didn't
Did,
know about that one.
did you drink it, Warren?
Well, actually, well, depends on what it was. Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
If it was a coffee, I probably would have drank it.
Okay, just checking.
That's funny. That's funny. But well, listen. Anyway, fellas, tonight we're discussing, as we'd mentioned, Last Sunset, and Lou, you just recently went back and watched this for the first time in a very long while.
Yeah, probably like 4 years, maybe. It was always one of my favorite episodes, and I remember very well. I was telling Roy the other night about this. Watching this when it first aired, we got it out where I am here in Rhode Island. We got it on that Tuesday night, and the network, rather the local affiliate, preempted the network to show Space 1999, which was unheard of. Because the network hated it when they did that, but they thought this was a big deal, and they aired it. So we got to watch this in prime time at the time, and that was quite a thing. But I remember very well watching that episode, and I remember when the moon was given an atmosphere. I said, "Wow, I wonder if they're going to leave it like that. Maybe that's how they're going to continue the show." But of course, at the end, sun goes down. That's that. But yeah, but that was a favorite from the start, and I always liked it. So it's either my top. I would say my top 3 favorite episodes, for what it's worth.
No, and I would agree. I would agree with you, Lou. This is definitely one of my favorites, and it's just one that really stands out. I think with the fans, it really has a lot of great character development, especially for the secondary actors. I mean, I'll say the background characters, as far as being the main mission staff, they're shown more so than they usually are. The ones that are background performers, but also for the secondary cast members. I mean, this is their time to shine in regards to Prentice and also Xenia, really getting a lot of character development for their characters. And there's been hint of their romance, or I'll say their liking of each other in the Black Sun, especially after Sandra loses Mike, and then Paul has an interest. And again, we're showing these episodes in production order, so we're kind of going through them that way. And I know a lot of people have seen these episodes in different orders, but if you're going by production orders, it's really progressing through. Of course, Another Time, Another Place, the alternate Earth of the future or the past, depending upon how you're looking at it. Paul and Sandra have children, so there's the hint of that. So then, with this episode, with them having the opportunity to kind of let loose, because it seems like they're going to be able to leave the foundation of Alpha and maybe start to settle on the moon, it opens the door for them. So I thought that was really, really cool in regards to their characters. Plus, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna, while I'm thinking, was Suzanne in that scene in that episode at all, or not?
Yes.
No,
in this, she was Suzanne Marquette.
No, I meant Suzanne Peterson.
I'm sorry.
What was she? Heimer at the time. Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to say no. I mean, she would have been, doubling for Barbara Bain, but right. I didn't see her featured as far as independently where you saw her as a background character.
As a character, no.
Medical a lot of times.
But to Warren's point, though, Suzanne Roquette, this is another reason why I really love this episode. She's not only in it, but she's given the opportunity to have dialogue, and she's prominent in the episode. And it's really sad that she was not listed in the credits and she's not credited. And I think this is probably one of the episodes that she really has the most dialogue. And
Yeah.
yeah, and there's Sarah Bullen right up in the forefront right there. in
Oh,
that.
that's right.
That's
Okay.
Sarah Bullen. Yeah, and Sarah
Sarah.
Bullen. Yeah, and she's really pretty and she was so nice to meet in 2014 too.
Yeah.
In fact, she was telling me that her son. I was telling her about my son being a runner, and she was talking about her son doing that as well. But yeah, she was another amazing individual.
Suzanne was playing tennis though with Nick, was she not?
Yes.
Yep.
She was.
He fell down, I think, when you took it.
Yeah, they were playing
Yeah.
badminton together.
Oh,
And
that's what it was. Yeah.
Badminton, yeah.
it was a nice moment shared. And there's also that indication, almost like, Alan's putting his, arm around Tanya, and it's almost like it would have been nice if they had gone in that direction, at least with the characters, because there was that moment, it was almost, flirtation or something, they were kind of being paired together. But unfortunately, it just really never went beyond that after this.
Yeah. So I noticed they shot that episode in the summer of '74, and I was wondering, where were you guys at that time when they were actually shooting that? I can tell you where I was. I was between being a junior and senior in high school. You don't have to say where you were, but that's.
I was 5.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's interesting that you're asking that, Lou. This episode was actually filmed over what would have been my 8th birthday, because I was born on July 20th, 66.
Yeah, you're a July guy, just like me. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're the 22nd, right?
That's correct.
Yes. So with that, I would have been going from 7 to 8. And we were living in New Jersey. We were in a town called Wallington, New Jersey, in Bergen County, which is probably like about maybe 45 minutes outside of New York City. So, yeah, when I think and this is the other thing too, because we talked about Alpha Child just the other week, and it's interesting because that, it was last week we actually talked about that. Jackie Crawford, when
He's like 50 now, right?
Yeah, he was actually, Wayne Brooks was like 6 years old, I think, when they shot the episode, or close to 7.
Oh.
So he's like right in our age, he's right there. And it's like, thinking, wow, could have been Jackie Crawford. That would have been really cool. So yeah, it's hard to believe again that so much has taken place, and it's that long ago, that the time.
Mm-hmm.
So what were you doing, Lou? Exactly.
I was on summer vacation between being a junior and senior in high school.
Okay. Wow.
And I just had my birthdays. I think they shot that. They started on July 23rd, if I read my notes correctly, and that would have been the day after my birthday, too. So I was 17. Yeah, I just turned 17.
That's wow. Yeah. It's
I think my whole working career has been and gone, and I'm retired now since that show was made. Yeah. That's sad.
No. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It is,
No.
But I digress. Yeah.
No, the digression is fun. Well, and to your point about this, they filmed the principal photography for this episode, but then what they did is they went back a couple weeks later, and the date was August 21st, and it stands out for me because that's Shari's birthday. Oh. And they were doing the outside scenes, like that scene that Warren just had up, showing the Alphins being outside, and they're waving to Eagle 28 as it's going to search for a new home. And they're going, goodbye, good luck, good luck. That was the first time they actually got outside for the series. They had never been outside before, so they were actually in the back lot of Pinewood Studios doing that. And this was shot before the Full Circle, so they hadn't done that yet. So for the fact that they got outside and they were able to, get some fresh air is kind of cool.
Okay, but let me ask one thing. They weren't actually outside. Weren't they on a moonscape set?
No. Well, yes and no. For the scene where they're actually, when the rain is coming down.
Yeah.
That's actually outside.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. That is in the back. That's like the back lot of Pinewood Studios. So they were outside for that. When they are sunbathing, and you had a photo up with Aft Joint, who was actually what was it? It was Steiner from Breakaway. He's a technician in this episode. In fact, there's a scene where there he is. Yes, that is actually the set. So that is on the sound stage.
Yeah.
So that part of it was shot on the sound stage. But when they were like dancing in the rain, and then Alan picks up Tanya and spins her around, and they're all very happy. That's actually outside.
I had no idea, because you see the Alpha base behind them, and I had no idea they would have set that up outside somewhere.
They have the building set up.
The building, yeah.
It's like it's just like a panel that's set up for that. But yeah, that's actually that was actually outside. That's the first time they actually did something, physically outside.
They had a fake rock wall, as I recall, too, sort of to the left of the frame, and so they didn't have to build too much of it. They just put
and they reused that. That was actually in Breakaway. And you see it in Last Sunset and various times.
That's smart filmmaking. You use stuff and try to make it not look like it did in the previous episode. That's
right.
No,
right.
I've done it myself. So.
Yeah, no, it's. I think that rock wall got used just about as much as Ara's throne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they actually, to your point about that, in these episodes, were almost shot back to back with Death's Other Dominion and Full Circle.
I got to have a look at this again. So
there it is.
Yep,
actually outside.
That's outside. Yep.
I had no idea. The more you know. Wow.
See, we learn something new on the show every week.
That's why we're here. Yeah. That's incredible. I love it. I love it.
Good times.
Well, since you guys are going back, just really quick as well. So I was 5, and although I mean it's today, 50 years later, again, it's not in my top 3 or 5, but probably a middle of the road episode, year 1 episode for me is Last Sunset. But I remember being that 5-year-old seeing it for the first time. It was very memorable as a kid. And so much so that after I first saw it, I remember my dad coming home from work at the end of the day, and I had to tell him everything about it. I gave him the most detailed synopsis imaginable, right down to the last scene, saying that, oh yeah, and Paul got a little scratch in his head, and he had a little bandage right here. My dad was like, yeah, okay, sure.
For times like that, you know who your friends are, Paul.
Did you
I think he was shaving at the time. We were actually in the bathroom, and I was watching him shave. So,
did you tell your dad he had a bad trip?
I don't think I got that part of it.
Except for the ending.
Right, Alan.
No, it was a great episode overall. I mean, there was some wonderful character moments. Great Barbara episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
The stunt double is great too.
And I was going to say, we mentioned Suzanne earlier, because isn't Suzanne at the end when Helena goes flying? That's Suzanne.
That is not Suzanne. That is her name is, her last name is Ford, and I can't think of her first name. And sadly, she has since passed away. And she was friends with Suzanne Heimer. And she was a very prominent stunt woman in the industry, and she was Barbara Bain's stunt woman.
Yes, because Suzanne was not a stunt woman; she was a stand-in.
She was a stand-in, yeah. But anyway, yes, she was in that episode, and you get to see her a couple of times, because when to your point, when she's, I mean, the character of Dr. Russell. I mean, again, a lot of people have been inspired by her position in this episode, in the series, because it's 1974, 1975, 76, 77 when this is being produced. And unfortunately, things were a little bit different back in the day. So a woman that is, in charge, and in fact, she was in charge of the mission.
That's right.
Koenig even says this, the mission is going to be over, for the most part, is going to be handled by Dr. Russell. She's pretty much in command of the mission. And, she even says to Alan at one part, one point, when he's going off about, the potassic acid and they lose their supplies. And then she's like, Alan, take it easy. She's like basically just telling him to chill out, and there's that moment. And then, of course, when things are really starting to get rough toward, spoiler alert, folks, if you haven't seen the episode, but, they're stranded and they're starting to run out of oxygen. They're picking up on it. Paul had a meltdown and, he kicked the tar out of Alan. And Sandra's, knocked unconscious. And what does she do? She sees the Eagle flying overhead. She heads for the, what's left of Eagle 2-8, and she gets the oxygen canisters and she just like opens them up and she gets the armor piercing laser. And she's like a badass. And what she does is she detonates it. She blows up the Eagle. And if it wasn't for that, it was a signal flare. And I'll even use the Space 1999 Star Trek connection. It's like, when Spock jettisons the remaining fuel in the Galileo 7.
Galileo 7.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, she's sending up a flare to alert, the Eagle, of course, who's Koenig, that's with Matthias, of their position. So it's a really, to your point, Warren, it's really a great episode for Dr. Russell, Barbara Bain, because it's really a take charge episode in regards to her position, and she really, gets her hands dirty.
Well, and the other thing, just as you guys are going through all this, it really made me realize Barbara's acting, even without Martin around. It's like she literally did just that. She took charge, right? And her acting style in this episode is completely different to every other episode, because I mean, being married in real life and then co-starring in the same series, it's almost like, I look at this episode and have to wonder, was she living in Martin's shadow, in some fashion all those years, and he was maybe holding her back, because her acting in this is, and that line in particular where she shuts Alan down like right away, and just the way she says it, like you never hear Helena Russell, with that tone or demeanor in any other episode that I can think of.
Well, she's stood up to Koenig in a few. I mean, especially like in Collision Course. I mean, that immediately comes to mind. Yeah. But I mean, she doesn't have a problem standing up to him. But as far as being independent of Koenig, I would agree with you. As far as she has the opportunity where, again, she's isolated with the others, and she's pretty much trying to keep things rational. I mean, even when they're running out of, they're trying to conserve the water. And, Paul says he's not going to have his. And then Alan says, Paul and I'll share. And then she pretty much turns around and says, you know what, if we don't make it, Sandra doesn't make it. So it's basically saying, you know what, you guys need to drink and we're going to get through this. And that's how it is. So there's another example of that. But Lou, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I was done. You're both right on that. But yeah, that's a good point, because she did take charge in that for sure. Like, come on, Alan. She was like really giving it to him.
Yeah.
Because I never saw that before. Not quite like that. Yeah. You're right.
And the just backtracking, it is Dorothy Ford. That was the stunt woman's name, who was Barbara Bain's. Yeah, it was escaping me, but and sadly, like I said, she's passed many years ago. But she was a good friend of Suzanne Heimer's.
Of course, another fine performance from Prentice this week. And it was nice that he was given the time to shine in a different capacity as well. Something that we didn't normally see from Paul Morrow. And of course, I mean, obviously due to substance abuse, if you will. But, Roy, you were saying earlier about the scenes with Xenia, and I think Lou touched on it about how there was hints of this relationship between Paul and Sandra, and then coupled with the fact that we've talked all along about watching these in production order or not. And again, I'm thinking a couple episodes down the road, when it comes to Full Circle, you see, if you do watch them in this order, there is that natural progression, because if you watch Last Sunset first and see this scene, so it's not just a hint at this point, it's like, yeah, there's a definite attraction there for sure. Then 2 episodes later, in come Full Circle, you get that line from Alan where he says, oh, all this concern, Paul's going to get jealous, so interesting little tidbit.
Yes.
Yeah, and it definitely it's like little trinkets that they throw at you. And one of the things that they mention in this too is, I mean, when Paul and Sandra are alone, and this is after they've gone out on the moon surface, they've done the oxygen tests, and then everybody is kind of like out sunbathing and having a good time. The two of them are in their regular uniform, and they're just taking a moment to have a stroll, and they're sitting down, and then they're just kind of reflecting upon everything that's happened with their lives. And Paul even makes the comment, there's things that they just can't talk about because they're cooped up within main mission. And they even show main mission, and then they even show the moon surface and how barren it is out there. But it gives them the opportunity to say that, what, maybe we can let loose, maybe we can take the next step, and thinking about expressing their feelings. And then that's when they embrace and they actually kiss, and it comes out that there is definitely that attraction, and that there is something between them. And now that shield, that guard, can be let down because their scenario, their situation seems to be changing due to everything that's happening, with potentially them going into orbit and also being granted in an atmosphere. And I use the word potentially because it's all seeming to be really, really good. Because let's not forget, when this episode opens up, essentially it's a reconnaissance mission with two Eagles. Alan is in the first Eagle, and then you have the other pilots that are in the other Eagle, and they're getting ready to enter the atmosphere of planet Ariel to inspect it. But what happens is, before they even get to that point, they have that contact with what they believe is a missile. So they're being pursued, and then they abort the attempt to land, and then the missile supposedly attaches itself to the Eagle, and then they go back to Alpha. And then that's where everything, as far as them exploring Ariel and learning more about it, is kind of put on hold. And then everything just kind of unravels. And this is really a deterrent from the residents of Ariel, the culture, the people, the life that exists there, for essentially keeping the Alphans away. And it's just enough time for things to go in a certain direction and prevent them from actually entering the atmosphere, which we learn about in the latter part of the episode in the epilogue. But it could have gone in a different direction. And even Alan says about wanting to go there, and Paul and him kind of get into a little scuffle, and this, in regards to the discussion, because Alan was having fun in the class. He even says, "Oh, now this is really flying." But then what happens is he loses control of the Eagle because they're right in that storm. But that was a really cool scene too.
Something I said a long time ago. Somebody was criticizing the show, which we've all heard it. I said, remember, this show was shot 24 episodes with no feedback whatsoever. Am I right on that?
You're absolutely right.
And there's never like, oh, maybe we should try this. Or, the fans are saying after week 5, maybe we should bring this in. Nobody, there was nobody. This is just 24 episodes in the can. And, you can't really.
Yeah, they were really their own best and worst critics, right? Because the only people they were relying upon were production personnel, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The feedback that they were getting was not coming from the audience watching the episodes. It was coming from, I hate to say it, but from ITC New York, that was seeing the episodes as they were filmed, because they were actually able to, process it and experience it. But as far as getting direct feedback, as far as critical assessment from the viewers, that was not happening. To your point, Lou, you're absolutely right. I mean, they filmed these, and it's like they were completed, and then it was being distributed to the stations, and they were trying to get it to go to network, but then the networks didn't pick it up, and then it wound up being syndicated. But still, it was still the end result.
We know how well network execs can review programs, and how their takes on them are like, oh, this will be great, and bomb.
The suits.
Oh yeah,
the suits.
Hey Lou, do us all a favor out there, and just give us a quick once over of your history when it comes to we touched on a couple of things, but convention wise, you went to the first convention in Columbus, right?
Yeah.
Just a little bit about your fan involvement and things like that for us.
Oh, gee, I wish I had prepared something. But I'll do this totally off the top of my head. Yeah, 78, Starlog magazine. I said, hey, wow, people actually, I thought I was the only person in the world watching this show. I think a lot of us felt that way. Maybe I'm wrong, but I said, they're actually having a convention for this? Oh, I'm interested. So who do you contact? There was no internet back then. It wasn't a phone you could dial up and ask somebody, what do you think about this? So the wife and I decided, let's be adventurous. Let's go to this thing and see what it's like. If it's terrible, at least we got out of town for a weekend. So we went, made all these friends, and it's like, yeah, we'll have to do another one of these. And then we went the following year to 79 Pittsburgh, was it? I think
you're right. Yeah.
My memory is starting to go a little bit on these things, but yeah, Pittsburgh, and then the 1980, I think, was Columbus again. Am I right?
That sounds right.
And then 81, I think, was Atlanta. I didn't go to that one for some reason, and I don't remember what happened. 82, was there a convention?
There was, I think, too. Yes.
There was something in between it because I think 82 was Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, so 81 might have been something else.
Something else, yeah.
Oh, 82 was Springfield, Mass.
Oh, I mixed it up. Yeah.
That was very cool because Martin Bauer was there with all these models from the show, and it was like walking into the greatest experience you could imagine. A whole room filled with everything from the show. It's like I was just blown away completely.
And those had probably never been seen in North America before.
Right. Philip Ray was there with Martin, and they
oh wow,
telling us all about. Somewhere I have an old beta cassette of talking to Martin Bauer. I'll never find it. It probably doesn't even work anymore, even if I could find a machine for it. But that was exciting. Barry was there. That's where I first met Barry, actually. And the gal from Superman.
Oh, Sarah Douglas.
Sarah Douglas. Yeah, she was funny. I arm wrestled with her. And I had
Ursa.
I had video of that. I, of course, let her beat me because it was more fun to have her. Oh, I gotta put her down. So
that's awesome.
That was a really good convention, even though they made no money and they had to take up donations to pay the hotel bill afterward. That's another story, which I was not involved in, fortunately. 83, don't remember much about it.
83 was in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, okay, I didn't go to that one.
Anne Lockhart was a guest at that convention, believe it or not. Sheba from Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, I don't know if I was at that or not. I don't think so. What was next? 84.
84 was Ambassador Hotel, and that was with Martin Landau and Barbara Bain.
Wow.
And then there was one in 85 in Arlington, Virginia, and Frank Ashmore was at that one.
I went to that one. I was talking to Frank Ashmore outside the hotel. We were talking about VCRs.
Wow.
That's what I remember the most about that. And talking about what format's best, and we're both talking. You should get beta. Yeah, everybody should be using beta. We both agreed, and then beta was dead like a year later.
Oh, real world problems of 1985, hey?
That's so funny.
And then 86 was the one in California.
That was cool. Well, I should say, yes.
You sent me video footage because when you and I met we had started conversing on the phone in 87, but you had sent me, and I can't believe it was like the year before was the 86 convention. That it shows you how much time has gone by.
Yeah.
I still have the VHS tape that you had sent to me. And again, it's like, I don't know if it plays, but with all of the footage that was, with Martin being there and Barbara Bain and Barry, and
wow,
I just, it was incredible. You actually had one of the two, what did they call the rocket guns that was in Beta Cloud?
Yeah, it was a season 2 laser rifle.
Yep, you had that. That was really cool.
Yeah, I sold all that stuff. Oof.
You had a what was it? Portrait movie. Yep, you had that. Yeah.
But I was going to say was how I got any recognition at all. And I'm not bragging about this, believe me, but I got into art for some reason, and I started doing paintings and banners and things. And that's when people started to notice what I was doing and say, "Hey, this is neat," and can you do one for me? And you should be selling these and all this. And then all of a sudden, people are coming up to me and talking, and are you that guy who did that? Wow, that's when I really I don't want to say popularity took off. So it was '85, and that was in Washington D.C., I believe, or Arlington. Arlington. That's next to Washington. Uh, that's when it all kind of started. And then by '86, everybody knew who I was, and then we had that LA convention, which was fantastic. And Martin and Barbara were there, and Barry, and that was just cool. The hotel that was in is now the Kodak Theater, is it, where they have the Oscars? That space that they tore down the Hollywood Holiday Inn, and that's where they built whatever it is theater now. It was Kodak. I think it's something else now. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Real quick, I just want to go back though, Lou, because we hit 86. In 1984, though, on your own, you made a big
reading my mind, bro. You're reading my mind.
You made a fan film, and it was called Voyage to Meta. Yes. Tell us about that.
Well, for kicks, I got the urge to build an Eagle cockpit in the loft of my barn.
For kicks.
Yeah, just that was one of my favorite sets, and still is, of all time. And I said, "Gee, I think I could build one of these." And I said, I know a perfect space to do it because of the shape of the roof. I could make those curved panels. I could backlight them. Get some yellow vinyl to use to make that color. And because my mother worked at a plastics plant where they made vinyl for GM and all these companies, and I could get it by the yard, as much as I wanted. The guy would give me anything, so I got all of this stuff, and so I made this set replica. I only made like 3/4 of it. I didn't make two sides, but it doesn't matter. So I said, I should use this for something. Like maybe I'll make a movie. So I did a Space 1999 based movie called Voyage to Meta. It was like a trip to the planet Meta that we never did hear any more about after episode 1. And that was it. It's pretty lame, but at the time, using a primitive video camera, camcorder.
It's quite an accomplishment for the time. It's on YouTube. I think I just watched it recently. I think.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
and it's considering the budget and the resources. I never heard the story about your in with the manufacturers, but
oh yeah.
Still. And there's one other thing that went along with that, Lou, and I'm just gonna maybe see if my co-host Roy can maybe move his head out of the way so that our fans can see something sitting behind Roy there. Is a little piece, and maybe you can give us a couple moments on that.
Well, about the same time as I was doing this set, and I really can't remember now. I think it might have been before I did the set. This is going back a number of years. My brain is nothing less than foggy at this point. But I said, I really like to build a 44-inch Eagle. I wonder if I could do it. And everybody told me, yeah, you can't do it. It's impossible. You need all of this. You need brass. You need to know how to weld and braze and all that stuff. It's like, no, I'm going to make it out of wood. I don't care who knows it. So I got a bunch of, zoom in there. I got a bunch of wood dowels. I knew the ship practically by memory because I've seen it so many times. And so I basically made it out of wood. It's all wood, except for the nose cone. I made that out of, believe it or not, cardboard, and I covered it with plaster and just shaped it and sculpted it.
So this is the world's first, no, it would have been second 44-inch Eagle, Robin Hill from back in the 70s. But this would have been, again, pre-internet. There was no resources. There were no blueprints. Right. This is just, from scratch, literally. And wow, just look at the results.
It turned out pretty good. The engine bells were made out of flower pots and Solo coffee cups that just happened to fit together to give me
Really?
the proper shape.
Oh, thanks for giving us a little view there, Roy, as well.
Yeah,
I've never
absolutely.
seen it close up before. It's
There
remarkable.
was a little light in it, and it lit up the cockpit, and I had a picture of myself in there. It was kind of funny. That long bulb long died many moons ago, pardon the expression.
Sorry about the reflection, but
No, it's beautiful.
It's probably the first one ever made of wood completely. I don't know.
Yeah, for
original
sure,
had
for
wood
sure.
in it. The
But
and
original-
Lou, you even did the ladder too. I mean the walkway,
Yeah.
the stairwell with it.
Oh, just some metal wiring that I made the handrails out of. Mat board for the steps. Yeah, and I was really happy to find out not too long ago that the 44-inch Eagle was actually 44 and like 3/4 inch long or something. And the funny thing is, that's exactly what this one was,
Wow.
by accident.
Yeah.
Because
Happy accident.
I had no plans for this. I just had a model kit of it, that MPC model kit.
Yeah.
And that's all I had to go by. And I just kind of brought everything up a little bit. So that's it.
Incredible. And now I'm going to segue into one other thing now, Lou, as well. I just sent you a recent con booklet from London, which we just got out to everybody over the holidays there as well, and it was quite a feat to put it together, but it focuses not only on the event itself, but we gave a little history, an entire rundown of the series, right from back in the 70s, regarding all aspects of fandom, conventions, newsletters, fan clubs, the early works of David Hirsch and Starlog, merchandise. And you haven't seen this yet, Lou, but now you'd mentioned your notoriety in the mid 80s there, and I just want to show you something that's included in that con booklet. These were all submitted by Roy, and we did a nice little piece on.
Oh, well, that's what you wanted those for. Okay.
Well deserved, Lou. I mean, the effort and everything. I mean, what you did, the work you put into it, it definitely needed to be showcased. So,
well, thank you very much. That's great.
Yeah, and I have to say, I had the privilege of actually getting to visit with Lou. The first time I actually visited Lou in person, that was in January. You know, we talk about knowing the dates. It was the end of January. It was like January 31st of 1988. So that was literally 37 years ago. And Vince was with us too, I think.
Yes, I remember that very well.
And getting to see that Eagle cockpit, I mean, you know, Lou is very, very modest. The work that he did with that was incredible. And I actually got to sit in that seat twice, but that was the very first time, and it was just it was amazing. And I think I'm like 60 pounds lighter there too. But
I remember that shot of me building that on the kitchen counter. I think that was mostly set up just to take the picture. But yeah, I had hair back then. It was dark. That gives you an idea of how long ago it was. And there you are, Roy, down in the corner.
Yeah, that was
sitting in the Eagle set. How about that?
Yeah.
Yep.
That had a real. I put a real TV in it, and I think it was a Commodore 64 I borrowed from somebody. No, it was a Trash 80, a Radio
Trash
Shack.
80, TRS 80 from Radio Shack.
That's what it was, and it actually did give readouts. That was like really something back then. Now it's a joke, but hey, look what they did on the show. They used to pull cards out with a black background with lettering.
Yeah,
that's how they did their computer readouts. And that Koenig, I love that one where they spelled his name wrong.
The missing link.
Yeah. I caught that first time it was on. I said, "What?" Somebody's head rolled for that one.
Amazing, Lou, that you were, an inspiration to so many people all those years ago.
Well, that's the first time anybody said that. It's kind of nice to hear, but I don't know if I was an celebration, but thanks anyway.
No,
I'll take
100%.
it.
I mean, because
I'll take
you
it.
look at all the scratch build models and garage kits and everything that came about in the 90s. I mean, absolutely, your work was incredible.
Well, thanks. I have been surpassed, that's for sure. But the techniques like 3D printing, all the stuff people have today, we didn't have that back then.
No, and I mean, you were doing it from photos and some videos. I mean, you were
Yeah.
basically eyeballing it, and to think of
Yeah,
what you
sure.
constructed with what's behind me right there, it is so amazing.
And one other, and carrying on in those footsteps as well. I mean, not only with the modeling side of things, but set building and set replicas. Um, we have just again here recently, if I can find it. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So
I've seen
was,
that picture. That's very cool.
yeah, Daryl Simmons and his crew and entire family just really went above and beyond for London there back in September. And boy, what a moment that was, wasn't it, Roy?
Words can't even put that in. I can't even express. I mean, what
Yeah.
Daryl has done and created was just amazing. So having the opportunity to have actually, experienced that in 1987 and then, excuse me, in 1988 with Lou, and then having the experience to experience that last year in 2024, fast forwarding all those years later, it's very, very cool. So
That picture is great. You even had the costumes on. That's like,
yeah, I mean, that's all Daryl. I mean, what he did, I mean, he is incredible with his spot on reproductions and recreations. I mean, yeah.
whatever happened to that set that they had in 1999? That main missions set. Remember that huge?
That went to auction, I think, didn't it? Somebody actually won that in the auction, and they actually dismantled it and they took it back home to wherever home was.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who that was though.
That was pretty impressive, as I recall. And it's huge. Took up the whole room practically.
I remember seeing that for the very first time because when I got to the event, I actually had walked in and I didn't know. I mean, that was my first time there. I didn't know, I hadn't even met up with you yet. And then when I saw that, I was just like totally blown away by that. It was just like, wow. I mean, it was amazing. So that's I have to say, every Space 1999 convention has its moments, whether it's being with the fans or if it's something that's special as far as maybe an art design. There's definitely something for everybody. So, but yeah, that was my first convention event that I was at, and I'm glad I got to experience that with you too, Lou. That was really cool.
Same here. It's funny. The first convention in Columbus was just the opposite as far as the aesthetics of it. They were renovating the hotel. The wall was like bare plaster. It was ugly, and they put a curtain in front of it just to make something out of it. But it was like really ugly. If you ever see any pictures of that first convention, you'll see that everybody's in front of a kind of a curtain, and the wall behind is all ripped up, and that's what we had.
I think I actually know what you're talking about because I remember seeing photos of Nick at the convention, and the background just looks kind of cheesy. If it's what I'm thinking of, I might be thinking of something else because I know the photos of. He actually did a convention that was a Star Trek convention, and maybe that's what I'm thinking of. And he was promoting Space 1999. 1999 was being filmed in '76. He was invited to a Star Trek convention.
Yeah, he's in the shuttlecraft. I've seen the pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, but I saw him. He's in his year 2 outfit and his fatigues and everything, and the background is just like really cheesy. It's probably similar to what you're describing, though.
Yeah.
That took place.
The hotel was under renovation, and it was just a mess. But it was like not a very good way to present something like that.
Yeah,
it's what it was. We didn't care because we were just glad to have a convention.
And you know what's really crazy thinking about it? So that 99 convention from 78 was 21 years. Now, the 99 convention was 26 years ago. So it's even that much further in the gap of time.
Yep.
Sorry.
I'm going to be sick.
Yeah. Well, listen, we talked about shout outs earlier, guys, and actually I've got a shout out that I'd like to give Roy. consistently. I mean, but no better time to start. And I'm going to bring something up here. And we talked about that convo booklet, and there was another shout out, and I'll just read it out to everybody here because it actually does dovetail nicely back into The Last Sunset. So just hear me out on this one. And this is for our friend Martin Willie. At the Catacombs website. So we did this little feature called Discovering Space 1999 online for beginners. So if you want to find out about the movie Office Space, made in 1999, try searching Google or maybe even ask Jeeves. If you want some engaging and thought-provoking conversation with over 40,000 true Space 1999 fans, go check out Facebook for about 20 minutes. But if you absolutely, positively need to know why there's a sliding window in Koenig's office Last Sunset, save yourself the time and just go to the Catacombs website.
We were going to talk about that too.
I know why it's there.
Yeah.
So yes, very, very famous
How did that happen?
sliding window, and to this day, and it's more than just a running joke at this point.
Oh yeah.
And what's hysterical is when somebody, I just saw it the other day, somebody brought this up and showed the photo and made reference to this episode about that moment taking place. And then one person said to the person that posted the post and said, "Why would you even put that out there?"
Just read the script. That's all. You'll have your answer.
Well, Mark Craig, and Mark is amazing. His dioramas that he has created, got to give a shout out to Mark, are amazing. I mean, he has created Main Mission. He's created the nuclear generating area. He's created different sections, corridors of Alpha, and then he's got the people, assembled and everything for like the publicity shots, the year one publicity shots. But anyway, he had, during the auction at the convention, he got the Last Sunset script, and he was like, yes, now I can tell those people out there how it is.
Because it was a deleted scene, was it not? And we actually found out it was Jack McKenzie, who was in Black Sun and Earthbound, who was the technician that was supposed to be in that scene, installing a sliding window in Koenig's office.
Exactly. So that scene that photo that you just put up with Martin, Barbara, and Barry, right before that was placed, right before they appear, and then he pulls it down, there were two technicians, one of them being Jack McKenzie and another, had installed the new window that is able to be retractable. And that's kind of how it leads into that. But unfortunately, that was cut. And then there's even more dialogue that's cut later on. And Lou, you're aware of that, right? In regards to that. And I can let you,
The very end of the show when they said that Kano turn down the lights, that one?
No, I mean, in regards to Koenig makes the order to replace the windows to put them back in because they had taken them out.
That's right. Yeah.
And then what happens is, because he's piecing together that since the Eagles are starting to malfunction, that it could affect the components within the base. So he wants them to basically repressurize with their own atmosphere, make sure that the atmosphere from Ariel does not come into the base because it's basically going to destroy their systems. So that's why he actually makes the order for the reinstalling of the original windows to be done. But they cut that because they cut the scene, which also showed them, doing what they did. To your point, though, there is that deleted verbiage that you were just starting to say, which would have been a nice point because all of a sudden it goes from it's lit to dark, and it's like, why did that happen? And that's really explaining that when Koenig says what you just said, kind of, let's dim the lights and have the last sunset.
The last sunset. I think it was better now that I think about it without the dialogue.
I agree.
Because it just spoke volumes watching that thing go down and the sky goes black and the fade out. It worked. This happened in one of my films, if I may mention.
Absolutely.
I don't want to give away anything about it in case anybody actually wants to see it sometime. But I had a line where somebody meets somebody and they say, thanks for rescuing me, basically. And I was going to have the other person say, you're welcome, I guess. But it was so much better with just her facial expression. And you have to see the movie to understand what's going on here. But the expression spoke more words than the dialogue would have spoken. So I just cut the line. I said, I don't need it. So that's kind of what Last Sunset was like too, in my mind.
Especially with the music, because the music is
Yes,
it's so appropriate. And coming back into that, it's almost like Paul and Sandra. It was so appropriate for the episode to end with them, because it really was centering around their relationship and how it was starting to blossom and it was starting to grow outside the confines of Moonbase Alpha. But now what was happening is they were being brought back into Alpha, and they were actually looking at and experiencing what their relationship could have been, but now it was actually going down. It wasn't only the sunset that was the sun that was setting, but it was almost like the relationship was setting, because now it was going to have to cool down, because they were not going to be able to have the life that they thought they were going to be able to have. And now things were going to be resuming back almost like is business as usual, with them trying to find a new home. So there was a lot of symbolism with it. And I thought it was really appropriate that they had that last moment, and it was focusing on them. And it was very solemn, but it was, and again, to your point, the dialogue not being there, it just conveyed everything.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Anybody notice that the first scene where the sun rises, that the sun cuts right into the hill that it's coming from, because it was a bad visual effect? Anybody notice that?
I did not notice that.
Watch it closely sometimes, especially on the Blu-ray. You can really see it. And the sun just kind of cuts into the horizon. It should be blocked by the mountain, but it's going into it. It's only when it rises, when it goes down, they fixed it apparently for the reverse shot. But watch that sometime. You'll see what I'm talking about.
No, definitely good eye, Lou. Definitely.
I don't want to end the show on a bad blooper note, but that's basically what it is.
Yeah, the wonders of high def, where you notice all these little things that
Brian
Johnson said he never thought would be noticeable.
Well, yeah, and that's when I exactly, when in discussion with Brian, he was like, that's not fair. You're using high definition, because when they did these episodes, it was, that the scrutiny wasn't there now. And it's like you watch these in high def and you're watching the set pieces and everything. It's like you could see the paint that's, on the walls is like, off center, or it's just, it's not a perfect stroke. If you ever watch which you guys have never seen the Metamorph before, but
yeah, right.
But when you watch that, that's the one episode that really comes to mind immediately, in the Metamorph, when you're looking at the walls on the Eagle passenger module, because it's so lit and the clarity is so clear. You can actually see it's almost like smear marks, because they probably freshly painted it from to launch the second season.
Even my own film, I noticed after I finished it, I bought a new TV. I bought a 75-inch set. I said, no, the first thing I want to watch is my movie on it. So I'm watching it, and I'm sitting here in horror, how bad the matte work was, which didn't show up on my 45-inch TV.
Of course,
of course. Whoa, I got to go back to Premiere and start re-editing this. And I had to fix about 40 different things in that I did not notice. So
with that said, Lou, want to give your speaking of your movie, want to give your movie a plug.
Oh, shameless plug.
Found in Space.
Yes, it's on YouTube.
This is something that you were in a little more recently, right?
Yeah, I did this. Well, it took me 2.5 years. It doesn't look it, but it's because I had a lot of problems getting people together and the usual production problems. And I'm thinking, why am I doing this? I'm not making money on it. It's just for fun. But I stuck with it, finished it up last November, beginning of November, I think it was. It was in October. I don't remember now. And it is what it is. It's a semi-dramedy, I guess you could call it. Does that sound right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
The thing is, Roy is in it, so it's worth the money just for that.
Oh my God, I need a signed copy now. Wow.
Well, there you go. So
No, listen, you had a lot of fun doing it, and I mean,
that's
I'm
what
I'm
counts.
I'm gonna again go back 50 years and just say that it was, probably in a strange way. It was watching space all those years ago that it gave you the motivation and the inspiration to do something like this, right? And it's maybe,
Oh,
um,
yeah, absolutely. But actually, Lost in Space was where it all started.
sure, yeah,
I
yeah.
used to watch that, and I used to say as a teenager, anybody can do better than this. As a kid, I ate it up hook, line, and sinker. I believed everything I saw on the screen. But then, you get older, you realize, boy, some of this is not all of it. Some of it's really dumb. And then I thought I could do much better than this, and I started doing Super 8 films. And then Space came out, or even Star Trek too. I was inspired by that. And then Space came out, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. They do a lot of model work, and I love doing that stuff. So yeah, I guess all of those together, that's how I got into it. My dad was a projectionist in a theater too for years.
Oh, okay,
I used to sit in the pigeonhole up in the booth and watch the movies from the.
awesome.
So, enough about me. But
No, no,
that's
it's
my
wonderful.
that's my life
No, we wanted
story.
to put that out there, Lou. Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes. How do you want it? If you, I don't want to. The URL is like that long, it's for that movie. I don't know if you want. You go to Roy's page and can
Well,
you
yeah,
add it?
we can post it. I can link it to a couple of our pages, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
For,
It's
for
it's one of those things that I think if you don't know the people involved, you probably won't find it all that amusing or.
But it was
Yeah,
entertaining.
it's
I don't
fun
know.
though. It's just it's fun, and the fact that that you put it together and everything, that really adds to it, and it has flow, and honestly, you put a lot of good work into it, and a lot of time and effort went into it.
Well, thanks. I mean, there is an actual story to it,
Hmm.
and I tried, but I was trying to just do something for fun. I wasn't really shooting just to make money. That's the last thing I care about. I really don't care.
that's why any of us carried around those Super 8 cameras when we were kids, right?
There you go.
It was about the fascination of the entire
Oh
uh,
yeah,
industry and whether it be motion pictures or TV. I mean, yeah, that was our main form of entertainment back in the day. When you think
sure.
about it, right?
Oh, during the summers, I mean, making
There you go.
making Super 8 films. I actually made a science. I used to do like sci-fi films like that. In fact, one of them was called Journey to Where. Gee, I wonder where I got that title from. And two of my Joe Metz, who Lou has met. I mean, in Joe is a grade school friend of mine, and Joe used to make movies, and we were influenced by, like Lou said, Lost in Space, Star Trek. Joe made a film. It was called Omelet, and it was about the cosmic egg. Huge influence from Raiders of the Lost Ark, was from that film. And, doing that in like 81, 82. And then there was Sunny Side Up. That was another film that, in fact, one of the things I want to do on an upcoming Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner, here's my shameless plug, would be to have folks on that have done these type of movies in our youth. And I mean, I have, I can immediately think of, people that have done that, right here, right now, myself. Warren, I don't think and forgive me, I don't know. I don't think I ever asked you the question, so I don't know the answer. Did you used to make Super 8 films? Did you do that? Sci-fi films and do that? Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
That's interesting though, because it's just, again, you're in Canada, you're in Western Canada. Lou's is in Rhode Island. I'm in New Jersey. And you know what? It's just when everybody getting connected. I think, obviously Space 99 was the focus right now, but I remember being at a Star Trek convention, one of my earlier Star Trek conventions. It was a creation event, and it was probably in '86 in November. It was in New York, the Penta Hotel. And I'm walking through an area, and I hear a tape recording of the from Lost in Space, and it's the sound effect. It's from the third season episode, Condemned to Space, and it's the prison ship. And I hear the sound effect from it, and I immediately turn because I just we've seen these episodes a million times over. So when we hear sounds or verbiage, dialogue, whatever, But
Yeah.
hearing the sound effect, I turned like that, and I knew immediately it was. And these guys were conversing, and they were talking about recording and everything. And I'm like, wow, how cool is that? Other people were taping the episodes and doing that, because I thought I was the only one doing it, like you were saying earlier. And it's like, as the years went by and you find out that other people have done that, and that's just one aspect of the creativity, then you find out that other folks have, filmed stuff, made scripts, and then, you've had Super 8 film. You get 3 minutes and 20 seconds on the Super 8 film, one cartridge, and you're editing it together with the splicing tape, and you're using a splicer that looks like a Star Trek communicator, where you're taking, you're flipping it open, and you're putting the two pieces of film in, and then you're bringing the splice down, and then you're taking the splicing tape that has little notches in it that you can tape the pieces together. The fact that we have all done this, and then if you're doing a laser effect, you're taking a pin and you're scratching the film, it's 24 frames per second, I believe, and then you're taking little highlighters and you're animating that effect in, and just little things like that. So anyway, with all that said, I thought it would be kind of cool to do like an episode dedicated to fan films that we've done, as kids. I mean, how cool would that be? But that's not what we're doing tomorrow night, though. The real shameless plug is tomorrow night is About Time, the classic 2013 film with Rachel McAdams in that. So and it's a time travel film. So, and the whole theme for that is because we're traveling into the next year, although this film deals with time travel going backwards. But anyway.
It's time travel.
It's time travel. Yeah, and we usually do 60s, 70s, and 80s, but you know what? We're going a little ahead because there really is not a lot of New Year's movies. So with that said, Ross will be back with me. He's been on hiatus because of the holidays. So anyway.
He's been in prison. We know that. Right?
Yeah, don't tell anybody that. So 7:30 tomorrow night, Eastern Standard Time. And that is Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner. January 5th, my shameless plug. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Roy. And listen, fellas, this brings up so many things. And I think I've told this story before, and I'm just going to circle back to early things that we did when we were kids. But in my one of the most memorable things growing up for me was renting actually 16 millimeter Star Trek episodes from the local library, and bringing lugging home the big reels and setting up the projector and the screen, and that was a weekend of home video entertainment. Before Lou, you'd even mentioned when VCRs first came out, they were revolutionary, right? We never had anything like that before, and
Yep.
it's one of the there was one section in that con booklet again that I just didn't have time to include, and in a future revision. We're very, very fortunate from a home video perspective as Space 1999 fans, because it was the first series that was virtually released on Laserdisc in its entirety back in the early 90s. There was actually it was the same company called J2 Communications who had dabbled in releasing some on VHS, and they only released 4 episodes, but then they went on to release the whole series, with the exception of Bringers of Wonder, on Laserdisc, 23 volumes, which, if you were a fan back in the day in the early to mid 90s and collected all of those, that was a ton of money, a ton cash in 1990s dollars. But we did it. Loved it. You had them too. Yes.
The whole first season.
Yep. Yeah, they were remarkable, and then of course leading into all things DVD and of course the wonderful HD remasters. We should be very, very grateful, because so many series made after Space 1999 don't have what we do today as far as HD masters, because they were edited throughout the 80s on videotape, and it just wasn't possible. And some series have done it, like Next Generation. They went back and they did, but they had to do, it was extensive. They had to build everything from the ground up, all the separate elements, right? Major task. Whereas with 1999 is shot on film, so boom, there's your high def right there.
I have to thank Lube too, because back in Space 1999 was on Channel 11, I think, in the 80s for a little bit, and then what they did was they totally pulled it. In fact, Starlog magazine even said that it was going to be pulled. And unfortunately, what was against 1999 was there was only 48 episodes. A show really needed to have at least 3 seasons. Obviously, Star Trek, syndicated 79 episodes that could be shown over and over and over again. But unfortunately, with 1999 only being 48, they actually pulled it off, and then it was not on for the longest time. And then around 85 or so, they brought it back on like in the wee hours of the morning, like once a week. And at that time, I actually had a video, I was using my parents' video recorder. And back in the day, VHS tapes, blank VHS tapes, were not cheap. I mean, I remember having to save my allowance, and a tape then, a VHS tape, was going for like $20. So, I mean, that was a lot of money for then, 40 years ago. Plus, you had to be very selective on what you were going to record. I always recorded at the 6-hour speed because I wanted to get as many things on there. And of course, with the 6-hour versus the 2, because it was LP and SLP and SP, I think was the difference.
EP was extended play.
And oh man, I mean, I Roy, to your point, I had 7 years of Next Generation on, but I always used the 2-hour mode for the best quality. So you can imagine how many tapes that took.
I still have the Next Gen, Warren. It's funny you're saying that. I recorded the Next Gen religiously because I was a Next Gen fan. From beginning to end. I mean, when it started, I was like, and that's a story in itself. Again, we're going off in 1999, but there was so much debate as far as what was going to happen in 87 when that premiered. But I stuck it out. But that was the only series in the new, I'll say new, after the original series that I actually stuck out. I mean, I watched the other ones, and when I say other ones, I'm referring to DS9, Voyager, but I did not watch them beginning to end like I watched
religiously.
I did not. No.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd go out on my dates, and then then I'd come home, and at 2:00 in the morning, I was popping it in, and I was watching it because I was like, okay, this is cool, and I still have those tapes. And what was nice about it is they had the previews, which was nice.
Yeah.
Now, here's a question for you guys. I seem to have a recollection when Space 1999 was on, at least on Channel 11, they would show and say, the announcer, and I can't think of his name, but he would say next week on Space 1999, and they would talk about, and it wasn't showing this episode. I'm not talking about this episode clips. They would actually talk about what the episode was going to be for the following week. Do you guys have any recollection of that?
No.
And I know I'm not going. I'll have to ask David Hirsch about it because I mean he's got the connections to Channel 11.
He would know.
He would know, but I seem to remember the guy saying, next week on Space 1999, and it was something that the station was showing, not something that it was done by IT.
No, it would have been like an in-station promo.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, they did do those. I know we didn't have them here, but they did. I saw them somewhere. Was it on the deck, the extras on the Blu-ray somewhere? They showed some of those.
Yes.
I
But
think
that's not what I'm talking about, though. I know what you're talking about because Martin Landau would say, "Hi, I'm Martin Landau," and then she would say, Barbara would say, "I'm Barbara Bain," and tune in, for Space 1999. They did it for year 2, and then they said only right here on, they'd say WPIX channel.
Right, they had to do 150 different promos with each of the different call letters for each station. Yeah,
but I'm talking about something that was dedicated to this specific episode, and the announcer was actually saying about the what the story would be, and I have a recollection of that, at least for 11. So
we didn't
check
have
with
that.
David. I guess
I will check with David Hirsch on that. Yeah,
we're gonna have him back on too.
Absolutely, definitely.
Locally, we had a Channel 10 out of Providence, and they had a Nick Tate and Tony Anholt did a promo, and they said, "Tune in next week, Space 1999. Come see us this year." And then they used the station's motto at the time, and they go, "See us here on Channel 10. We're everywhere is here." And I'll never forget that. And I called years later. I called the station and I asked if they still had that film in their archives because I wanted it. And guy looked and he said, I don't remember that. I said it definitely happened because I'm a fan of the show. I remember it very well. And he looked and looked, and he said there was nothing. Still, they must have tossed it. But love to have had that. That would have been cool.
Well, you remind me too, Lou, and this is something that I've been searching for, and I've talked to different people, but Leonard Nimoy and Catherine Schell did an interview, and I think it was in Boston. I think it was in Massachusetts, and it was like a morning show. It was I think it was maybe, I don't know if it was ABC, but it was the local affiliate. But anyway, the two of them were, on together because she was doing Maya and she was going to be the resident alien, and then Leonard Nimoy obviously with Mr. Spock. But as far as tracking down a copy of it, and you'll see a photo of the two of them together. I think it was actually showcased in one of the earlier Starlog magazines. It was probably Starlog.
It was called Star Warp magazine. I remember that. Yeah, there's a picture of them on the talk show set. Yeah. Together.
And I would love to get a video of that, but it's so long ago now, and I don't think I have not been able to track it down. But so if anybody out there knows what I'm talking about, and you have a connection, let us know.
Lost in Space Cast was on a Boston channel one time with Tom Bergeron when he hosted a talk show.
I
before
remember.
he did Dancing with the Stars and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he had the whole Lost in Space Cast on.
Wow.
That's on YouTube. You can find that very easily. So
Amazing.
look it up sometime if you really want to see it.
So,
And just to circle back to that convention you and I were at in '95, where we met Barry Morse, Lou.
Yes.
Do you remember the other guest star that weekend? It was June Lockhart.
Oh yeah, June.
It was June, and
I introduced myself to her. I said I've got to talk to her because I'm a big Lost in Space fan from way back, and so I went over to her, and she was nothing like Lassie's mom. I can tell you that, and as you probably noticed. So I got talking to her, and she was like, "Yeah, how you doing?" She's like, had her finger up her nose, and it was like, I was like, "Wow, this is June Lockhart. This is the Maureen Robinson." Okay, so then I said, "Well, I had to say hi because I said I'm a big fan of Lost in Space." So she goes like, "Oh, Lost in Space, yeah." And then I couldn't shut her up. She says, "That was the best time I ever had in my life." He says, "I love that." We laughed from the time we went to the studio in the morning to the time we left, and then I made a friend, and I said, "Well, I'm going to see you in Boston," because she was going to do a little mini convention at the Bayside Expo Center. I remember it very well, and I said, "I'm going to see you up there," and she's, "Oh, good." She said, "Point yourself out when you just wave, so I'll remember you. I'll remember who you are." I went, "Okay." I figured she never would. So it was like a year later, I went to this thing, or maybe within a year, and I'm standing behind the stanchions and the tape and all that stuff, and she's up on the dais, and I just caught her eye. She saw me, and I kind of waved, and she goes, "Hey, come on." I said, like under the tape, just come on. So I went under the tape, got ahead of everybody else. And then we talked for a second, and then she signed a piece of paper I had or something, and that was my experience with June.
wow, that is awesome.
That was kind of fun.
It's funny. I watched an
No
interview with Bill Mooney just recently, and he was talking about her, and he was just saying that she was like so into rock and roll.
Yeah, well,
And,
I think it was.
Yeah, just because she just conveyed almost like a I don't want to say she was matronly, because she wasn't. She definitely wasn't. But she looked like a mom on Lost in Space. But
Yeah.
she had that wig on and everything. But if you took, I think there were a couple episodes where you could see her hair was like a little long, but she had like really long, thin hair, and she was probably she was just. And the funny thing is, she was only like 40 when she did Lost in Space. I mean, it's like that was like freaking 20 years ago. You know what I mean? So it's like. It's crazy when you think of that. And it's just, but when you watch these episodes, you always think of them as being older than we are, because we were kids when we watched.
Sure. Yeah. Just
but,
like Leave It to Beaver. I still think of Tony as like Tony Dow is the big brother kind of thing. What was he like, 13 or 14?
Exactly.
He's still older than me.
But June Lockhart, God bless her, though. I think she's 99 now.
Yeah.
She's In fact, Guy Williams, I think he would have turned, if I remember correctly, I think he would have turned at 100 last year. So I think his birthday's the 14th, would have been the 14th of January. So he would be coming up.
Warren's leaving. He's like, "Welcome to Lost in Space, the motion picture." You know,
No. Listen.
I'm getting out of here.
I was just thinking to myself, it's amazing the way our conversation flows from topic to topic, because we all take a thread and we go off in a tangent, right? So we're talking about space, and we think of Barry, we talk about Portland, and we talk about June Lockhart, which leads to Lost in Space. We mentioned Bill Mumy, and one of the things I was talking about earlier is remastered series, and I'm so excited. I'm diving into this tonight. And Roy, yes, we are going there. We're going to talk. We're going to talk about some reaction videos, something else to do with the channel here, to try and open up the viewership. But I can't see it.
Oh, Babylon 5. Looks
Babylon
like
5 remastered in HD for the first time.
Nice.
With Bill Mumy.
Yes, there you go. There's a connection. Yeah.
With
All
Bill
right.
Mumy. It looks incredible. Yes. And that's where, you know what, even to go a bit further back in the conversation, Roy, you'd mentioned watching Next Gen. You fell off during DS9. I was exactly the same way, because this little show came along. And to me, this was my Star Trek for the time. It was Deep Space Nine times 10.
Wow.
So,
There you go. Yeah.
but yeah, no, listen, fellas, we have really had a great talk and conversation here tonight. I've had so much fun with this, and we really appreciate everything, Lou, and just so nice to see you again. And thanks to Roy again for reaching out and setting this up. You've been a wonderful, honored guest.
Thanks for joining us, Lou.
This was tons of fun, and the time went by. What are we, like an hour and a half? And like, where did that go?
I know the time went really, really fast.
Exactly.
And as you can tell, we love The Last Sunset. It's definitely. And if you not, maybe I shouldn't say everybody. Well, Warren, I know you liked it. You said it wasn't your top 5 or 10, but it's definitely an episode you liked. Lou, it was his top 3. I would say this episode is definitely within my top 10. It's always been a favorite. And one of the other things we didn't get to talk about real quick, just to interject, this was the debut of we were talking about 44-inch Eagles. This was the debut of the second 44-inch Eagle that was used in the series.
That's right.
There was always Eagle 1. Now they also had Eagle 2, and you can catch these differences due to different, different parts, different.
Aztecing, whatever you call it.
Yeah, and I know there's proper terminology, and I'm not going to be able to. I guess on the side platforms, with the landing struts, it's very discernible where you can see the differences between Eagle 1 and Eagle 2. And if you're a modeler, I'm sure if you go in the comments section, you could list a mile, differences. But the fact is, this was the introduction of that second 44-inch Eagle, which was really cool. And you
didn't have to use a picture in the background like they did in that. What was that episode? Where you can tell
Missing Link. They used cutouts, cardboard cutouts. Yeah.
It's pretty obvious. Even on a bad TV, you could tell.
Yeah. And they did a little bit of that in full circle in a couple episodes too, though. It's strange.
They did, because they had
they had 3 in one shot. Yeah.
Right. And when the third Eagle comes down, the Eagle 1 and 2 are almost like parked in a different type of position, and one of them is a cutout. And because Eagle 3, which would be utilized in the second series, wasn't around yet, so that was the third 44-inch Eagle, which is owned by Darren Peters. And we should also give Andrew Frampton a very nice nod, who owns Eagle 2. Andrew has been so kind, so generous with allowing the folks to see his stuff, and his costumes. And we got to see him again in London. And a huge shout out to Andrew, and also shout out to Darren when we got to see him in Calgary too as well. And he had Eagle 3 on display. So
yeah,
Eagle 1. we don't know where that wound up. The rumor mill says potentially Peter Jackson, but we don't know for sure. So.
And just building upon what Lou said earlier in the show, there's just nothing quite like walking into a room full of original props, screen used items. It really takes your breath away.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I remember they had little sound effects going in the background from the show, and it's like, just what an experience that was. It's kind of like the first time we went to the Star Trek set in Ticonderoga.
Yes, yeah.
The same kind of thing. It was like, wow, just speechless. It was just so cool to see that stuff.
Yeah.
So much of it too. He brought so many things over.
It
cost him a fortune to ship that stuff.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Everything is in being done in England. But
well, fellas, anything else you can think of? Because I already thought of the way we're gonna say our farewell this evening, guys. We talked about it earlier in the episode. So as opposed to coming up with a phrase or a nod to an episode where they say goodbye to each other, this week, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go silent and we're gonna watch The Last Sunset.
Oh, there we go. That's appropriate.
The only difference is now, 50 years later, it's symbolic of the fact that we're all 50 and 60 years of age and we've got one foot in the ground.
That's a positive note. One other thing I do want to say, this episode, the screenplay was by Christopher Penfold, and Charlie Crichton, stop the foam, directed this episode.
That's not quite what he said, but that's we know what he said.
We know what he said, but I mean, you talk about a prolific director, so definitely. And Chris, of course, rest in peace. I mean, again, another brilliant individual. So nice to have met. But anyway, with that said, thank you both.
Yes.
Thanks for having me along. This was fun.
Wonderful again. Yeah, for sure. Thanks everybody again. We'll say farewell for now, and stick around for a few minutes, Lou. I'll take us out, but then the three of us can chat for a second as well. Next week, what are we doing, Roy?
Next week, it is going to be episode number 12, Voyager's Return. The
Jeremy
Drive.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks very much again to everybody out there. I appreciate your support for Space 1999 this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.